Hi, Charlie Kosorik, Jack Bench Woodworking, and a few months ago I bought one of these Shaper Origin handheld CNCs, and it's an awesome machine. I like it a lot. If you're not familiar with it, just briefly, the way this works is it has a camera in the front of it, and you take the camera and you scan the area in front of where you're going to work, and it uses that scan as a reference to know where it is in the world. And in order for it to recognize something familiar, you buy this special tape. They call it domino tape. And what it is tape with rectangles on it and dots that look similar to a domino. And you put the domino tape in a tape field in front of your work where you're going to work. And that's generally how it gets started, how it works. Another thing about this is that the work that your cutting surface has to be perfectly flush at the exact same level as the tape field. When I first bought this machine, I didn't have any way to hold the work like that. And what I would do is I would put my workpiece on the bench and I would double stick tape it down, and then I would take a block and I would shim the router up to that surface, or vice versa, depending on which is taller. Maybe I'd shim the tape surface up to the top of the work. And very, very inconvenient. I did not like having to do that. There are instances if you have something that's really large, sure, you might do that, but it was pretty inconvenient. I didn't want to keep doing that. So on the Shaper Hub, there are designs for workstations similar to the one here. And I looked at them, and there are some good designs out there. Most of them are dedicated for vertical work. And what I mean by vertical work is you have a board and it's vertical and you're working on the end for joinery, that kind of thing. And there are some that have horizontal designs where you can have a horizontal piece in there or something bigger. And I liked them, but I had some ideas of my own, so I came up with my own design. And this workstation converts from a vertical workstation to a horizontal workstation. And so I will have plans for this available on my website or on the Shaper Hub. And by plans, I mean I have the SketchUp file, I'll have all the SVG files that are labeled and marked for what each piece is and what size to make it. I will also have, and I have on my website right now, I have some blog articles that with pictures and written descriptions that may or may not be more helpful than this video. In addition to that, this is a series, a two-part series. This first video about the workstation is to describe the features and generally how to use it. The second video is more about how to build it and some of the iterations I went through in the design, and how the actual SketchUp file and the SVG files are slightly different than this, because after I started using it, I realized I could improve on it, and I put those improvements into the files, into the plans, so that the ones, if you download them and build it, you will have an improved version of what you see here. But this is fine, and I'm not going to do it over. So how you use this is I have these pins in here, and these pins in the T-track, these pins create a plane, a single plane, and the plane that they form is exactly 90 degrees to the top of the tape field, or perpendicular, whichever way you want to phrase that. So you take your work, butt it up against there, assuming you want it at 90 degrees. You take one of these clamps, or two clamps, whichever you prefer. clamp it in place. I would normally use two. And you feel with your flush to the top and you're ready to go. But I saw there's a commercial version of this available, and they have something similar to what I have here, and I call this a vertical stop piece. And so the way it works is I can put the vertical stop piece on the top, and there are latches on each side. Latch it down. And now, when the piece is in here, I press it against the pins, but then I can also butt it against the bottom of the vertical stop. And now the top of the piece is exactly flush to the tape field, and without any guesswork. So that's primarily how you would use it for vertical work. I also have an angle stop piece, and how this works is this goes onto these pins, and you have a T-bolt goes in this slot. You can lock it in at whatever angle you want. Put your workpiece in there, clamp it down, and you're good to go. So that is that, almost. There's one other thing. So you have your workpiece in here. We'll say like that for now. And you're cutting, but there's no support on the sides or on the back. And so what I have for support, I have this piece which is movable for different sizes, and it fits in some slots here. Now it's supported just fine. There will be times when you need, or I would need, support across the sides, not just the back. And so I have these slots cut here, and you can put a piece in there, and now it's supported on all four sides, which I think is a pretty nice feature. I'm happy with how that is and how it works. So now that is how it is with the vertical orientation. Now I'll show you the horizontal orientation, and after I go through the horizontal orientation, I'll explain some of the other features like the onboard storage, and we'll get to that. So to convert this over, this stuff off. These pins just pop right out. And I have what I call extension wings. And these extension wings slide on here, and they're held in place with some T-bolts. And one cool thing about these is they register in place. You notice if you put it on here, it would just slide down. But I put, if you can see that, I don't know in the camera, but there's a slot right here, a little mortise right there, and there's a corresponding block of wood on the main body of the workstation that slides into or over. And so I put this, so that slides exactly in place, and it stays while I reach over and get the T-bolts. And one cool thing I did, which was kind of fun, not necessary, but I mortised put these oval mortises around the bolts, so the T-bolts are flush. Really not a big deal, but I thought it was kind of fun to do. Anyway, so these go on here. Put the T-bolts in here. Spin those on. The same thing on the other side. So now I have this, and this area will accommodate a piece that is 20 inches long, 12 inches wide, and 7.5 inches deep. And to support the horizontal work, I have this horizontal support piece. Looks like this, with some slots and some T-bolts that go into those tracks, and a work surface. And I have, this is actually a sacrificial work surface. I put a piece of 1/4 inch MDF on the plywood and double stick tape it down. So if this gets beat up, I can just peel it off and put a new one on. So to install this, put that in there. Lock it in place. And now I can put some work on here, any thickness up to 7.5 inches, and I could use some double stick tape to hold that in place, and I'm good to go. I would rather not use double stick tape if I don't have to, though, because it's an added expense. It's a couple extra steps to put the tape on, take the tape back off again. And so to get around having to use double stick tape for every time, I have this auxiliary work surface here. And what this is, it's a piece of plywood, and I have some T-tracks on the top. And there's some blocks of wood faced with leather for stops. And there's some cam clamps here, again, with leather faces on them to lock the piece in. And how this attaches to the workstation is on the bottom, I mortised some short pieces of T-track in there, and I have some T-bolts in them that slide back and forth. And the T-bolts can't come out because they're locked in with the T-track that's surrounded by plywood. And there are 4 of them. You'll see these extra mortises here that were in the wrong spot initially, and I fixed that for the plans that I have available. So anyway, I'll just take this, slide it like that, slide the bolts over. And there. So if I want to put something on here, some work on here, I have something like this. This is the kind of stuff that I really had in mind when I bought the machine. And this is a prototype of a box that I made last year. Anyway, so for something like this, I could put it on here, move my stop blocks there. Okay, push it up against the back here. Push that stop against it. Push that stop against it. And now these cam clamps move them with an Allen wrench. I could put a knob on there, but with a knob, then they get too tall. So I can use the Allen wrench, and it's not as big a deal as I first thought it would be because I stored the Allen wrench right on board here, so it's not inconvenient to get at. So Allen wrench goes back in here and lock there, lock that in, and now it's solid. So this is held in place at 5 different points. It's held against the spoil board on the body of the workstation, the 2 stop blocks, and the 2 cam clamps. So again, to actually use this, I would put the vertical stop in place, loosen up the bolts, move that up flush, lock that in, lock that in. Now I know that this is perfectly flush here. Then I take my support piece, put that behind it, and I can take a few other support pieces and put one there. I'll put one there. Now this is there's support for the workstation around all 4 sides while I'm working, and it's very easy to set up. The stop can be moved out this far, and then I just use a longer board across here, or piece of T-track across here, and I can have the supports again on all 4 sides of whatever I'm using. So there will be some times when I'm using something that's thinner. This is 1.5 inches thick, this support piece, and a lot of times I want to work on something that's thinner than this, and if this were in place here, that would interfere with, I couldn't get the work surface up there. So what I came up with is, I have, and that stores on my vertical stop, I have a piece of T-track, heavy-duty T-track, and I can put that across there, and now with that, the T-track is just under 5/8 of an inch. So now I can work on something. Anything greater than 5/8 of an inch can be supported by this. So I'm covered if I'm working on pieces of plywood. So that is another feature there. That is basically how to use this. That's the horizontal orientation, that's the vertical orientation, and that's how to use it. What I also want to show you, though, is there are all these little pieces of this, the angle stop, the vertical stop, these pieces here, the clamps, and I wanted to have onboard storage. So what I came up with for these pieces, I have some bolts coming through here, and I put those in place with wing nuts. And this one goes back here, that one goes there. So I've got some of these that store right on top of this vertical stop piece. And I can store other ones, like here's a wooden one, and I can store those on the side here. And then I also, with these clamps are something that I want to be able to store. If I'm keeping it in horizontal orientation, I won't use these clamps, and I don't want to lose track of them. So what I did, I put some mortises on the side of the workstation, and a T-bolt fits right in there. And so then I can just take the clamp and store it right there. What else? Oh, another thing is that when it's in the vertical orientation, it sticks out past the bench about 6 inches. And I have it attached to the bench. I have these star bolts, 3/8 inch bolt with a plastic handle on the end. And these bolts are actually captive in the tabs here. I talk about that in the second video. And I thought that would be just a really cool way to fasten it to the bench. And that was okay, but it wasn't as sturdy as I would like. So then I drilled a few holes in the corners of the tape board, and I just drove some sheetrock screws into my bench, and that worked fine. And that was very, very good when it's in the vertical orientation. In the horizontal orientation, however, if I have something way out here, there's a little bit of flex, just a little bit. Not bad. I could work with this, but I would rather have it more secure. So what I did, I came up with these sticks. It's a stick with a hole in it. And anyway, this butts up against my workbench, and I have a T-bolt in the side of the workstation, and put that in there, and with one of those on each side, man, it's really secure, very solid. So anyway, I'll talk more about that a little bit in the second video. So that is how this works. Like I said, the files for this, plans if you will, are available on my website. There are the blog articles, about it, which more pictures and details. And this is also available on the Shaper Hub, but the Shaper Hub might not have as much detail as is available on the website. But either way, you can download these for free. So that's it. I hope you liked it. Thank you very much. And like I said, I very, very strongly encourage you to watch the second video if you would like to actually build one of these for yourself. Thanks.